but also the powers for documents and evidence and ultimately judicial oversight. Do you believe that that would be a good, nonpartisan, non-political, unobstructed opportunity for us to deal with these matters of national importance when it comes to piercing the veil of cabinet confidence and the ability to pursue any types of allegations of wrongdoing? Would a public inquiry have provided the remedy that seems to have frustrated you in your ability to have a full investigation?
So, Mr. Chair, I would say that even with the public inquiry, I think cabinet confidence still applies, and that's something that you have to work out, but my understanding. So, again, real short, I think cabinet confidence was set in place for a reason. I'm far from being an expert in that. I think it has to be reviewed as to why it was put in place and the interpretation of cabinet confidence as I discussed with the Honorable M. Villemeux.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Green. Final 2 5-minute rounds. We're going to start with Mr. Brock, and I understand he'll be sharing his time with Mr. Cooper. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
That's correct. Thank you, Chair. In the RCMP assessment report from February 2021, I've identified 2 items which partially explains the RCMP's reluctance to not continue the investigation. You referenced this as early. JWR, Jody Wilson-Raybould, did not think a crime was committed. She stated the Prime Minister's actions were inappropriate and unethical, but not criminal. Did the fact that she was still a member of Justin Trudeau's cabinet factor in that analysis?
To be honest, Mr. Chair, I'm not exactly sure if this was a factor.
Thank you.
In her determination.
Yet after Dion's report, she told the RCMP that information she read gave her cause for concern. Are you aware of that?
That's correct. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Is the RCMP in the habit of outsourcing investigatory decisions to non-investigators?
I'm not exactly sure about the question, Mr. Chair.
You seem to be relying upon the fact that she used the words, I don't believe Justin Trudeau's actions were criminal. That seemed to be a factor in your analysis. Are you saying that wasn't a factor?
Yes, of course it was a factor, Mr. Chair.
So the question is very specific. Do you generally outsource a non-police citizen to make that type of an opinion of a legal matter?
You mean from the former Attorney General?
Yes.
I would have to say that her testimony is important in the assessment of the overall situation.
She was a member of the Liberal Party of Canada. Of course she's going to say it's not criminal. She was hanging on to her job. Can't you see that as an issue here?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was.
Right? And she paid for her price because of her refusal to follow Justin Trudeau's lead in offering the DPA. I'll move on. Dion's terms of reference required him to shut down the inquiry if he discovered evidence of a crime being committed. Did that weigh in your decision as well?
Again, I would have to say, Mr. Chair, that this was not a determining factor.
Okay.
Again, it was based on the overall. This is one element amongst a myriad.
The Justice Committee, before it was shut down by the Liberal government, interviewed 5 witnesses. Ethics Commissioner interviewed 14 witnesses, yet you interviewed 4 witnesses. You did not interview the Prime Minister. You didn't interview anyone in his office, the PMO or the PCO. My last question to you is, you had the opportunity to interview Justin Trudeau and you declined. Yes or no?
What I have to say, Mr. Chair, that this is an answer that's not a yes or no question. What I have to say is that when we look at this, of course, our purpose is to look for criminality. We need to meet that threshold before we can proceed to further steps. Again,
and everyone else had an interest in those witnesses except the RCMP. Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Cooper.
2 minutes, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify for the record, the RCMP could not rule out criminal wrongdoing on the part of the Prime Minister, correct?
Go ahead. Of course, Mr. Chair, I would have to say that until we had a chance to look at everything.
It's at paragraph 23 of the conclusions and recommendations in the investigation report. So you can confirm that.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And was the RCMP hindered in its investigation when it drew the conclusion that there was insufficient evidence to further pursue the Prime Minister, including because of the refusal of the Prime Minister's personal department, the PCO, to expand the order in council?
So again, Mr. Chair, we worked within the parameters that were given to us and the regs that were given to us, and we
And
did
the parameters
apply.
were inadequate.
And we did apply to open through an order of council to have additional information, and it was refused.
It was refused by the PCO. And paragraph 24 of the investigation report states, however, should additional evidence be uncovered corroborating a criminal intent to obstruct justice, it would be recommended that the occurrence be reopened for further investigation. Now, I have a real tough time understanding, in the face of the obstruction that the RCMP was facing by the Prime Minister and the consequent lack of evidence to further pursue getting to the heart of the issue, that being obstruction, why the RCMP didn't see fit to even pick up the phone and contact the Prime Minister and schedule an interview with him.
Quick response, if you will.
Yes, I would have to say, Mr. Chair, in this situation, of course, again, we have to operate within the parameters of what we have. It's not to me.
Nothing within the parameters that you had that would have precluded you from picking up the phone to contact the Prime Minister.
But again, we have to assess if a criminal offense has taken place.
Thank you. Ms. Khalid, 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. So just to recap what we've heard today, you investigated. You did not find any criminality or any wrongdoing. Is that correct?
Based on the information I've given. Yes, that's correct, Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes. And we've talked about cabinet confidences and how there should be parameters around those cabinet confidences in balancing out transparency. Yes.
And that, Mr. Chair, I'll leave it up to this table to determine what is appropriate.